Sheri, what's the question you get asked most often?
I think everybody is really curious about audience building, and crowdfunding. I get a lot of questions about, usually after a campaign's already launched, which sometimes is too late to be asking that question. Often as well, when you're launching, about to launch your film, and then you start asking questions about the audience, that's totally backwards. That all of these questions really need to be started in the very beginning of this, when you're making the film, when you're writing the script, when you're thinking about it. There should be in your mind, who am I writing for? Who do I imagine watching this movie that I'm writing? I would think that would make it easier a little bit in the process, that you're, maybe putting in jokes, or you're being sure to include a certain kind of information because that's what your audience is going to want to know. If you don't have that idea when you're writing, it continues to be a problem throughout into distribution, because it remains vague. You're not sure who you're going after. You're not sure who's going to respond to this material. And it makes it that much harder, because you're putting all your time and your effort and your money into this without a clear idea of how you're going to get anything out of it. So that's one of the big questions, is audience. And the time to ask that is not, we're in post and now we're trying to figure it out, or we're about to raise money in crowdfunding and we need to figure this out. It's when you're developing the idea. And to start with, I ask, who are you? What are you interested in? What drew you to this story? Why do you feel compelled to tell it? Then where do you hang out online? Where do you hang out offline? What do you read? Who do you listen to? All those aspects, to starting with you, makes it lots easier, because yourself. That's not hard to identify. It's when they start with these demographics, 18 to 35 women, that's a huge disparate group. They don't all love the same things. So thinking more along the lines of interest and psychology and what emotionally moves, it really takes you then out of an age group. You're really targeting then an interest group, a psychology that you want to find. And it's much easier to find those people than when you're just targeting a blank age.
And once you have identified your audience and you're sort of ready to take that next step, what are those next steps? Where do you go from there?
Well, I have sort of changed my thoughts about when you should start this process of audience engagement. One, I think that artists should be doing that all the time. So in that way, you are creating your own identity. In marketing speak, it would be brand. I find filmmakers don't like to use that word, but in marketing, that is what it is. A brand is your identity, your personality. So you should be sharing that personality all the time when you're online. Professionally. I don't mean what are you having for breakfast, where you went on vacation with your family, deep dark secrets about yourself. I don't mean to make all your private thoughts known and your privacy given up. But from a professional standpoint, what drives you? What motivates you? And start. You can start today, with sharing that, of pulling people toward you who are of that same mindset, who are compelled by the same thing you're compelled with. A great book that I read over Christmas was called Start With Why. It's by Simon Sinek. And he says people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So you should always be showing people your why. You should always start from thinking, how does this show why I do what I do? And those same people who are compelled to think that way, or do those things, or are motivated by the same things that you are, get drawn to you. Now, if you're a negative person, and I've seen this happen a lot online, where people are very cutting and they cut other people down and they always have really negative things to say, and then they get surprised when negativity starts coming back at them, on their sites, in their comments, on their blogs, on their Facebook page, lots of negative comment. It's what you're putting out in the world is what is coming back into you, what's attracted to you. So if you don't want that, then don't be that. Don't show that of yourself online. But so that's what you start to begin with. Now, if you have a project, during the time when you're in production, when you're writing and you're in production, you're stockpiling, you're collecting, you're looking for all the assets that you're going to be able to use or that you can use to create more material for later. But hold off on the online engagement, opening up your social channels, till you're about 6 months from your premiere. Because in 6 months, you can keep the motivation up, you can keep the momentum, you can release new things, and 6 months is not a terrible burden. And the audience can stay with you for that long. If you're 2 years or 3 years to making a film, you're not going to be able to keep up that project-specific content release for very long. It will be too draining for you, you'll run out of ideas, and the audience will get bored. You know, they when is this thing happening? When is this thing coming out? They kind of do expect that when they hear about it, it's soon going to be released and they'll be able to see it. So they can wait about 6 months or about 4 months, but they can't wait for indefinite period of time. So when you're thinking about project-wise, for a long time you're going to be collecting and thinking about how you're going to release. And then when you get into post and when you see, okay, we're about 6 months from when, it doesn't have to be a firm date. You know, you don't have to know. If you're doing it from a festival, you won't know if you're going to get in, but you know around October or around January, it'll be ready and we will be looking to have the premiere. Then get started. Then start showing your project off and getting interest and getting people. Then you're maintaining your pages and you're cultivating an audience for the project.